Potential. That word has almost become a cursed word in the gaming industry over the past few years. And honestly, it's pretty understandable. There's a growing sentiment that the games industry has become more about selling potential than about creating good games. Games like The Day Before had so much potential in its ideas and how it seemed like it was going to execute on them, but was too good to be true and nothing more than a scam and a cash grab. High Guard seemed like it had a lot of potential with how they were trying to take pieces from so many different genres and stitch them together to craft a new experience. But ultimately, it had no identity, no vision, and no idea of how to put all those pieces together in a way that was fun and engaging. Star Citizen has enormous potential, but it will likely be my great-grandchildren that get to see that potential realized. The point is, it's pretty understandable to see this shift towards a more cynical direction over the years. The temptation, however, is to write off all games that have not reached their full potential because a few games got it really wrong.
Trash.
And it's important to remember that a lot of truly amazing games took time to get into their stride. Games like Valheim, Factorio, Baldur's Gate 3, and even Project Zomboid all spent time in early access. They released the game before it was finished and crafted the game alongside their communities and are better for it. Hell, even Escape from Tarkov, as easy as it is for me to dog on that game, and as much as I do personally feel like it has still fallen short of its true potential, I can't deny how impactful that game has been and how much fun I've had playing it over the years. And that was 100% due to them releasing the game into early access in 2017 and building on the game from there. It's not about the potential, it's about the actions. Ideas are cheap and execution is everything. And that execution takes time. None of those amazing games we talked about became what they are in one patch. It takes years of moving the game in the right direction and carefully balancing community feedback, learning from the live environment, and maintaining the original vision for the game. So let's talk about Gray Zone Warfare. Gray Zone is a game that at this point is almost entirely known by its potential. It sold tons of copies at launch, but struggled to maintain its player base due to bugs, performance issues, and a lack of long-term gameplay loops to keep players involved. But most people agreed that there was something there. This game had potential. There have been 3 major patches since the game released, and the most recent one, patch 0.4, just launched, and it brought a ton of changes and updates to the game. So a lot of people are wondering, is now a good time to hop back in? In my opinion, this patch marks a new chapter for Gray Zone, which is both a good and a bad thing for Madfinger Games. This update strengthens what makes Gray Zone great, while also shining a light on where Gray Zone misses the mark. Let me explain. Patch 0.4 feels like its goal is to elevate the core systems in the game and make interacting with the game a little easier and have a little less friction. That doesn't mean there is no new content added. There is still some new content added with this patch. There are new locations and new biomes which make the world feel more alive and more immersive. Walking around the swamp areas or the first time you enter the bamboo forest in the jungle feel really great. They've also reworked some of the old locations. Midnight Sapphire is a great example of this. It feels so much more complete and it's a place you want to stay in and continue to explore. They added new puzzles and new ways to interact with the world. These are pretty simple, safes with codes or power that needs to be turned on, and the interaction between those two, a couple of jump puzzles. There's nothing too crazy here, but it feels good, it feels immersive, and it's much better than just walking up to a box and looting it. Of course, they added new weapons and new gear, new attachments, new armors, tons of stuff like that. And they added a lot of new loot items to the game, including some really high value chase items. This is huge for me personally and probably one of my favorite pieces of the new content. I love farming loot and finding really expensive things and the tension of trying to get that thing back to my stash. There is also a lot of quote unquote garbage loot, but I kind of think it's okay to have a balance between the garbage loot and stuff that you really want to look for. And I'm sure that this stuff will be used for future stuff as well. But those additions are not the main changes in this patch. Almost every way you interact with the game got updated or changed in some way. Movement got a rework. There are now 2 different types of sprint, a tactical sprint and a burst sprint for closing short distances really quickly. Your stamina also scales with weight a lot more. So if you run in super light, you are going to have a lot more stamina than if you have a full kit on. The third person running animations look a lot better. And they also made some changes to the jumping, falling, and vaulting as well. The jumping still feels a little bit weird to me. It doesn't like take me out of the experience. Like I can still jump and get to where I need to go, but it just feels like the beginning of the animation is too fast and then it ends a little too fast, and it just kind of feels a little bit weird, but it's not that big of a deal. Also, falling sometimes feels really, really weighty, even if you only fall like 1 feet. Feels like your guy has to like collapse and pick himself back up, but maybe that's just because I'm a gremlin and my backpack's full of stuff and I'm always heavy. The audio got a big overhaul as well. In general, the world sounds much better and much more immersive. The mosquitoes and the frogs are so much less annoying, and they added a ton more like ambient wildlife sounds. The soundscape feels really good, and the spatial audio sounds great as well. It feels pretty easy to identify where a sound is coming from, which is great. The gun sounds got a facelift as well. They sound really meaty, really mean, and it just, I don't know, it feels like this is what a gunfight actually sounds like. I really like it. And they've struck a good balance between the world sounding alive, but not so alive that you can't hear the stuff that you want to hear. I feel like I can really easily identify where somebody is if I'm in a bush or if I'm holding an angle and I hear somebody running up on me, which is good. They've got a good balance there. The AI saw a couple of updates as well. They added new AI factions. Some of them are much more lethal than others. They added new AI bosses, and some of them can have like special custom weapons. And you can now come across some AI patrols between the points of interest as well. They've also tuned the AI a bit with this patch. They seem much less aimbotty, which is really nice. There are a lot less instances of somebody just 360 no-scoping you from 100 meters away and that first shot hitting you in the head. Yes, they will still hit you. They'll still hit you through bushes sometimes, but it seems like it's more of a ramp up where they are made aware of you, they yell at you, they start shooting at you, and if you are really out in the open or if you're really close to one and you don't know he's there, yes, he can absolutely shoot you in the head and kill you, but it's much less of that kind of like instant 360 that it felt like in the past. The AI also react better to being shot. When you land shots on them, even if it's not a kill shot, they will fall over or they will hold their leg or they will kind of have these really dramatic reactions, which is great because it lets you know that you've hit them, and their follow-up shots are a little bit slower to come back to you, which feels nice. Now, the AI are definitely not perfect. Games like this will always struggle with the pendulum where on one side, the AI feel like they're God mode and they just one-tap you from 100 meters away. And then on the other side, they feel really dumb and they're just like walking around corners, never shooting at you. And I have noticed that it is apparently a lot easier said than done to find that middle ground. It almost feels like the pendulum is always on one side or the other. And there are also definitely still issues with the AI and how the health system works in this game that creates some really weird experiences. For example, a couple of disparate things often come together to provide the experience to the player where it feels like they're shooting the AI in the head a lot and they're not dying, when that's not really what's happening. A lot of people like to use the scopes in the game, the LPVOs like the Voodoo or the Elcans or something like that, and those can't be zeroed for anything under than 100 meters away. Now, separate from that, the way the health system works in Gray Zone Warfare is it's very focused on internal organs. Lungs, heart, stomach, and brain are where you are going to do the most damage or where you are going to kill somebody. But there are no lungs or organs in the neck or collarbone area. So when you add these two things together, oftentimes you will have players using a scope that is zeroed for 100 meters, shooting at an AI that is closer than 100 meters to them, which means their bullet is going to hit lower than their reticle. They put their reticle on the like jaw or face area of the AI, which means when they shoot, they're actually hitting them in the neck or the collarbone area. That's hard to tell because when you shoot an AI, it limps over and you see the blood splatter and it feels like you shot it in the head. And because there are no organs in the neck or collarbone area, an AI can tank 5, 6, 7, 8 shots in that area before it dies or before you end up hitting it in the brain or in the heart. And this is kind of what creates that weird experience. Now, fixing this is probably a combination of adjusting the AI and adjusting the health system a bit, but this is just one of those weird situations that can come up that can provide a really unfortunate situation for the player when it's really just the way the systems are interacting is what's causing that problem. Moving on, however, the map got a big update as well, and I'm a little torn on this. On one hand, I really like the visual changes to the map. I like that it shows you the area that your quest is in, but still absolutely makes you look around for the actual thing you were looking for. I like that you can accept tasks out in the field and turn them in as well. and I really like the idea of them breaking up the tasks into 3 categories: main story tasks, side quests, and contracts. However, it now seems much less clear on how to proceed through the main storyline tasks. And since all the quests are repeatable now, the main storyline quests you have already done keep popping back up on the map while you're trying to look for the next quest that you can't figure out where it is. I think all of this feeds into the new reputation system. Now, the way you unlock quests in a new area is by doing tasks in the surrounding areas. But I feel as though the main story quests should have been separate from this, and maybe the main story quests shouldn't be repeatable either. It just feels weird farming like main narrative story quests that you've already done and kind of farming them over and over again for the rewards feels a little cheesy. I'm still figuring it all out, but once again, there is a lot to love here for me. I really like that there is such a clear incentive to explore new areas on the map because you can actually see on the map that, hey, there's a quest out there, and then you might spend some extra time out there looting. And I really like the almost RPG aspect of farming up rep in one area so that you can gain access to the quests in a new area. I just think that the way it interacts with the main story quests is a bit weird. Also, most quests will now fail if you die, and you will lose a little bit of reputation with that quest giver, and that quest will be on a cooldown before you can re-accept it. Once again, I'm a little on the fence about this. The game definitely needs more tension and more consequences for dying to make dying feel more impactful, since most of the time you can just kind of spawn naked and run right back to your body. But this can feel a little bit arbitrary at times. Once again, it might feel a lot better if the main tasks weren't put on cooldown. You could always do the main tasks, and it was more just the side quests and the contracts that would be put on cooldown when you died. The health system got some updates as well. They haven't really changed how the system works, but they are working on trying to add clarity to what health items you need via icons, sounds, animations, and limping so that you can diagnose yourself better without having to tab into your inventory and go to your health screen. They added colors to the paper doll up in the top left of your screen when you get hit so that you know where you got hit and how severe of an injury it is. There is a much bigger focus on going unconscious when you die but you aren't shot in the head to promote more team play, and there is a lot better diagnosing and healing of your teammates, and even a timer showing you how long they have left in their coma. All of this is heading in the right direction, but I am still a little wary of the general health system in this game. I really like that they're trying something new with the system instead of just arbitrary HP pools, but it was so convoluted at the start and required so much knowledge of so many disparate systems. They seem to be moving it more towards the balance of gamification and realism, and I really like that direction. But like we talked about with the neck hitbox earlier, there are definitely still some weird issues that can pop up. I think generally the system encourages much more of a push and pull, where you go in for a fight and then have to hard commit to a retreat when you have to heal, and that does create some cool, interesting gameplay. They also added more endgame medical items, like more stims and more items that heal you faster, and I think that will help a lot as well as we move into like the mid and end game. And then moving on to a really important thing for a lot of people in this game, and that is optimization. The game has come a long way over the years, and in patch point 4 specifically, there was a big focus on lower end systems. If you've got a higher end, newer system, you probably won't see any performance gains, you won't see any performance loss, but probably not any gains in this patch. But if you're on an older system or on a lower end GPU, they have really been focusing on elevating that experience. They've also focused on reducing RAM usage by a pretty significant amount to help systems running only 16 gigabytes of RAM, and there have been a lot of server-side performance improvements as well. DLSS 4.5 is on the horizon in a coming patch as well, which should help a lot of people. This has continued to be a huge focus for them, and they have definitely made some strides in the optimization camp. In addition to all those features that we talked about, they also added a ton of quality of life things, like a tutorial to make the new player onboarding experience much better. Now your teammates show up on your compass at the top of the screen, so you don't always have to be spamming the map to see if that is your teammate. There's now a stats screen where you can track literally every single thing possible that you've done in the game. They added binoculars to help spot people from far away. Now a lot of the tasks will share progression with your squad mates, which is great. And they've added a ton of new cases for stash space and just for things to grind for with your money. All of these things added up mean that the ways you interact with and move through this game have all gotten better. And my hope is that they use this as a jumping off point to start adding new mechanics and new gameplay loops into the game. This is what I think Greyzone needs more than anything, and this is what I was talking about earlier when I said that this patch also shines a light on where Greyzone is falling short. The conversation around this game has been centered around bugs, poor performance, frustrating AI, or something of that nature. Well, now with almost all of these complaints either fixed or in a much better state, I think the conversation will start to shift more towards what is there to do in Gray Zone and what is this game supposed to look like in the future. It is incredibly respectful that Madfinger have now spent 2 years honing the experience, fixing the issues, and optimizing the game's performance, all while expanding the map and adding locations to visit. In Point 2, they brought the day-night cycle and night vision. Point 3 brought the combat outposts and a more fleshed out experience for PvPers, and Point 4 has elevated all of the base mechanics of the game. But all of that has felt like focusing on improving or expanding what we have in the game. But what about what we don't have? They said that the game launched with only 20% of its features. What are those other features? What's going on in Ground Zero? Are there other gameplay loops planned? Will factions play more of a role in the future? Right now, the game is primarily focused on unlocking and exploring the world and questing along the way. And that is great, but it begs the question, what happens when you have fully explored the world? What happens when you have a stash full of loot and money and you're done with all the quests? Will there be more things to grind for or progress? More loops to participate in? More things to spend money on? I think in the beginning, before the game launched, there was a bit more of a conversation about what Gray Zone is supposed to be. They talked about the game being based on the book Roadside Picnic, which is the same book Stalker is based on, and that led to all these cool theories about supernatural elements in the game. They talked about how faction warfare would be a core part of the experience. The roadmap had patches on there called Battle Forge, which got people excited about the possibility of crafting or personal progression outside of the quests. They also mentioned a whole soft skill system and how they wanted a bespoke approach here where you had to earn these merits and you could show off your skills in the game. I can't speak for the community, but I am dying to hear more about all of these things. And to be clear, this is not coming from a negative place, quite the opposite. It's actually insanely cool how they were so committed to fixing the issues that plagued the launch and really turned this into a game that I am jonesing to see what happens next. It makes sense that during this time they didn't want to overpromise on new features, and it's a compliment to them that there is now really nothing standing in the game's way. I just want more now, and I really hope that they start to show us more about what is coming and what this game is supposed to look like on the journey to 1.0. Gray Zone Warfare has never felt better than it does right now. But to get back to that original question, is now the time to hop back in? Well, that depends. If you've played the game before but were frustrated by bugs, poor performance, or convoluted systems, I think now is the perfect time to hop back in and see what the game has to offer. If you've already played a ton of Gray Zone Warfare, completed all the quests and all the tasks, and were looking for more content and more gameplay loops, well, this patch might not be what you're looking for, but the stage is set, the foundation is laid, and I really hope they start to shift towards expanding on the gameplay. All of this, however, is just the opinions of one gamer. I definitely want to know what you think. Have you been enjoying the new patch? Are you excited about the future of Gray Zone Warfare? Or did you hate watch this video because you don't like the game? Let me know down in the comments. If you like this video and think I deserve it, think about dropping a like or subscribing to the channel for more content like this. I'll be streaming Gray Zone Warfare quite a bit over the next couple of weeks for the new patch down on Twitch and here on YouTube. Those links will be down below. Thank you again for stopping by, and I will definitely see y'all on the next one.